Chapter 7. A Sin That Demand Reckoning. Daniel had spent years avoiding his past, burying it beneath success, beneath marriage, beneath the illusion that time erased sins. But now, his life was crumbling. His marriage was failing, his finances were collapsing, and no matter how much he tried to deny it, something felt like a curse had settled over him. A curse he had tried to outrun. He had abandoned his faith in Jesus, running instead to fortune tellers, desperate for answers. None satisfied him. None could name the shadow that lurked behind every loss, every failure. And then that day, while he was rushing to another seer before an important business meeting, his car broke down. An encounter. Daniel swore under his breath, kicking the tire in frustration. He was stranded, helpless, infuriated. And then, he saw him. A frail old man, thin, wrapped in worn-out clothes, his hands clasped in front of him as if in prayer. His beard was uneven, his sandals dusty. A beggar, Daniel thought. Another desperate soul looking for scraps. Daniel sighed sharply, waving him off. Daniel said, "Listen, old man, I don't have anything for you. Just move along, okay?" The prophet didn't flinch. The prophet said, "You will not find your answer there." Daniel snorted, shaking his head. Daniel said, "Oh, fantastic. First my car dies, now I get a street preacher. What next? Divine intervention?" The prophet did not smile, nor did he retreat. His gaze, gentle yet piercing, held Daniel in place. The prophet said, "You are running. But it will not change what has already been written." Daniel rolled his eyes, letting out a sharp breath. Daniel said, "I don't have time for this." The prophet said, "You will not find your answer at Almari's hall. Ezra cannot give it to you." Daniel froze. His breath caught in his throat. No one knew where he was heading. And yet, this frail old man, this supposed beggar, knew. He was not random. He was not crazy. Daniel's fingers twitched. He clenched his jaw, tightening his grip on his phone as if the device could anchor him to reason. Daniel said, "Who told you that? Who sent you?" The prophet took a step forward, voice quiet but absolute. The prophet said, "The truth has already been spoken, even if you refuse to hear it." Daniel's pulse thundered in his ears. The prophet said, "It was a young woman. Innocent. Virgin." The air became thin. Daniel could feel his stomach twisting. The prophet continued, "She trusted you. But you betrayed her. You stole her choice. And left her to bear it alone." Lightning. A strike straight through Daniel's chest. He stepped back, as if distance could erase the words. As if retreat could make them untrue. But he knew, deep in his bones, he knew. The past had caught him. And he turned to go. Daniel was lost for a moment but then realized, he couldn't let him go. So he ran to catch him. "Please." The prophet's revelation. Daniel pleaded, "Help me." What am I supposed to do?" The prophet stood still, his hands folded, eyes unwavering. His gaze met Daniel's, soft yet unshaken. The prophet murmured, "You need to amend." Daniel swallowed hard, his throat dry. The prophet continued, "To confess publicly." Daniel flinched. Publicly, not in whispers, not in secret, but before the world. The prophet declared, "And you must seek her forgiveness." Daniel's breath caught in his chest. This was not absolution without consequence. This was not escape. It was reckoning. Daniel blinked. And when he opened his eyes, the prophet was gone. No retreating footsteps. No shadow slipping into the distance. Just emptiness. A chill ran down Daniel's spine. He frantically scanned the street, the alleyways, the corners where the old man could have disappeared, but there was nothing. He was not just a beggar. not just a stranger passing by. Daniel felt it now, the overwhelming presence that had lingered in the air, pressing down on him, demanding his attention. An angel. Sent not to comfort, but to command. Daniel turned slowly, his breath uneven, stepping back to his car in a daze. And as soon as his hand touched the door handle, the engine roared to life. All on its own. Daniel staggered back, his pulse roaring in his ears. No. Not an accident. Not a coincidence. A sign. There was no denying it now. He had been warned. And now, he had a choice. To obey. Or to perish under the weight of his own sins. Pastor Elijah. He turned to Pastor Elijah, the only man who might understand, the only man who might know how to guide him toward redemption. Daniel sat across from Pastor Elijah, the weight of his sin suffocating him, shame thick in his voice. Daniel whispered, "I ruined a life. And now, it's ruining me." Pastor Elijah listened, not with condemnation, but with sorrow, because he had seen this before. The consequences of a wound left unhealed. And in that moment, Daniel understood, this wasn't just about guilt. This was about making things right. Daniel had entered Pastor Elijah's presence seeking redemption, but he never expected the conversation to turn against him in ways he wasn't prepared for. The pastor listened, not just to the confession of a man desperate for salvation, but to the echoes of a past that he himself had been part of, a mistake he had made, a daughter he had cast aside. Pastor Elijah listened, his hands clasped tightly, his breath slow, steady, controlled, but his heart was anything but calm. Daniel spoke in fragments, his voice cracking under the weight of his confession, unearthing memories that had long been buried in silence, in denial, in cowardice. Daniel choked out, "I drugged her." His voice faltered, dropping to a whisper. "She was innocent. She trusted me. And I." He swallowed, unable to finish, unable to justify the unforgivable. Pastor Elijah didn't move, but his breath stalled, his fingers clenching tighter as if holding on to the last remnants of control. And with every word, Elijah's pulse roared louder, the truth slicing through him like a blade. Because this wasn't just sin. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a crime. A violation. An irreversible destruction of innocence. And then, realization struck. Pastor Elijah's voice, usually calm, measured, carried an unfamiliar edge. He asked, "Do you understand what you've done, Daniel?" Daniel stiffened, his pulse slowly, unbearably loud in his ears. He continued, quieter now, almost pained, "You pushed me into error. Your deeds led me to cast away my own child." The weight of those words hit harder than any consequence Daniel had considered before.
Daniel swallowed hard, confusion flickering beneath the heavy silence. Cast away? Ava? The realization landed heavily, unexpected, sharp. He hadn't known. Hadn't cared. Not then. At the time, Ava had been a consequence, not a person, just another ripple in the storm he had created. Whatever had happened to her, where she had gone, what she had suffered, none of it had mattered to him back then. But now, he felt it, the full force of his indifference, crashing over him like a wave he could no longer outrun. His breath was shallow. The room felt tighter. He had expected disappointment, perhaps sorrow. But this grief, this quiet devastation, this was worse. He tried to breathe, to form words, but what could he possibly say? Nothing would undo what had already been broken. It wasn't just Ava's life that had been wrecked, it was the foundation of a father's love that had crumbled because of one cruel mistake. And that truth settled into his bones, heavier than any burden had ever carried. She had never tried to justify herself. She had never fought against the rejection. She had simply taken responsibility. Carried the burden of a lie. She had never spoken and walked away with nothing but shame and survival. Because when she had pleaded, when she had begged for even a shred of belief, of mercy, of love, she had been pushed away. The memory settled in Pastor Elijah's chest, something unbearable, something he had tried to forget but could never truly erase. Daniel had no defense. No words. No excuses. No way to turn back the clock and undo what had already been done. He had ruined not just Ava's life, but her father's trust, his ability to see his own daughter's truth. And now, justice demanded more than regret. It demanded action. And with every word, Elijah's pulse roared louder, the truth slicing through him like a blade. Pastor Elijah's thoughts splintered, memories he had forced himself to forget crashing over him with unbearable force. The night Ava had pleaded. The moment he had refused to listen. The choice he had made to turn her away. She had begged him to believe her. And instead, he had cast her out. He had made her carry the weight of a crime committed against her, as if she had been the sinner, as if she had been the disgrace. And now, he realized the true disgrace had been his own blindness. His voice was quiet but unrelenting, edged with something deeper than fury, something colder, more absolute. Pastor Elijah spoke, low and measured, "You destroyed her. And because of you, I failed her too." Daniel felt it then, the shift, the irreversible consequence of his actions. There was no forgiveness here. Not yet. Not without justice.
Not without truth. Time passed, but the absence remained, a quiet, aching void that neither Pastor Elijah nor Daniel could fill. Days stretched into weeks, each one marked by fruitless searching, unanswered calls, and doors that led to nowhere. Ava had vanished, leaving behind nothing but questions and regret. For Pastor Elijah, guilt gnawed at him, a relentless reminder of his mistake. He had cast her away, and now, he had no way to bring her back. For Daniel, the weight was different, but no less suffocating. He had once ignored her disappearance, indifferent to what had become of her. But now, it haunted him. And yet, no trace. No closure. Only silence. Until that night. Pastor Elijah never expected his past to come rushing back through a television screen. The evening news played as it always did, corporate movements, financial updates, glimpses into the city's elite. Pastor Elijah barely paid attention. Until, the anchor's voice broke through the quiet room. Breaking news: CEO Nathaniel Duffert, the city's most eligible bachelor, has officially announced his engagement. Sources confirm the wedding is set for later this year. At first, he didn't care. Until the image appeared. The bride. Ava. Or rather, the woman she had become. She was unrecognizable, yet unmistakable. The softness in her features had hardened into elegance, strength, precision. Her presence, once quiet, hesitant, now commanded attention. But what struck him most wasn't just the transformation, it was the name. Introducing the Madame Duffert to be, Miss Ava Elijah. Ava Elijah. Pastor Elijah froze. The name confirmed it, even before his mind could fully process her face. She had rebuilt herself, not as the girl he had abandoned, but as someone entirely new. The daughter he had pushed away was no longer seeking refuge. She had become untouchable. And yet, she had never come back for him. Pastor Elijah stood there, motionless, the weight of that truth crushing him more than anything he had ever faced. She was alive. Thriving. Strong. But she hadn't needed him. Hadn't wanted him. And now, was it too late? The moment the news segment ended, Pastor Elijah stood frozen, the remote still clutched in his hand. Ava. Alive. Thriving. Wearing a name that no longer belonged to him. His heartbeat was loud, deafening, but determination quickly overtook shock. He needed to find her. To reach her. To speak to her, before it was truly too late. His fingers trembled as he grabbed his phone. Who could get him close to Nathaniel? Who could open a door into the life Ava now lived? Names raced through his mind, old friends, distant contacts, anyone who might know something. And then, he moved, first calls, then visits, desperate inquiries. But getting close to Ava wasn't going to be simple. She was untouchable now. Protected. Guarded. And every step forward felt like a battle against time, against fate itself. But he wouldn't stop. Not until he faced her. Not until he knew. Would she listen? Would she turn him away? Or was the daughter he abandoned already lost to him forever?